Monsters are feared because they do terrible and extremely unpleasant things. Walter Dean Myers wrote a novel entitled Monster. It is about a young African-American boy named Steve Harmon who is labeled a monster. Well, that's what Sandra Petroselli calls him. And who is Sandra Petroselli? She's the attorney prosecuting Steve. And Steve, he's on trial for murder. The novel begins with Steve locked up in a detention center and scared because bad things are happening all around him. He is so scared that the only way he can process what is happening to him is to write about the experience as a screenplay. That's different. So the rest of the novel reads just like a script, with fade-ins, fade-outs, cut-tos, character lines, voiceovers, mixed with journal entries. It's a really cool read. Anyway, back to Steve. Steve has found himself on trial with another guy named James King for robbing a drugstore in Harlem and killing the owner, Mr. Nesbitt, who was well liked in the community. Some of the witness testimonies come from Jose Delgado, Richard Bobo Evans, Osvaldo Cruz, Wendell Bolden, Mr. Sawacki, Dr. James Moody, and Laurel Henry. Each provide a different lens to look through about the murder and a different perspective of Steve as a person. Myers also uses flashbacks to provide insight about Steve's past, to shed some light on how he finds himself on trial for murder. Steve also writes a lot in his journal throughout the novel. He shares his inner fears, his hopes, his dreams, and sadly his regrets. In the end, Steve is acquitted, and James King is found guilty. Steve is so happy he can barely contain himself. But when he reaches to hug his attorney, Miss O'Brien, to thank her, of course, the weirdest thing happens. She steps away from him. She doesn't want to hug him. Does she think he's really guilty? Months pass, and Steve continues to question this about himself. Is he really a monster?